Good morning, everyone. Oh, that was pretty good. I would normally have you do it again, but that was pretty darn good. Thank you. I say that by saying, welcome to SEICon 3. Very excited to be here today. And on behalf of UNLV Sports Innovation Institute, part of the UNLV Harrod College of Hospitality, thank you for joining us. We are extremely grateful to have you here, but also really grateful to have our presenting sponsors, USA Today Sports, for their partnership and belief in the vision of SEICon. Thank you to our speakers, our exhibitors, attendees, and partners for bringing your time, expertise, and energy to this conference. I also want to recognize the outstanding teams of MGM Resorts International and Bellagio for their hospitality and support. And a special thank you to UNLV and Syracuse University and the many organizations and individuals who have helped make SEICon possible. Over the next 2 days, I strongly encourage you to connect, collaborate, and think boldly about the future of sport, entertainment, hospitality, and innovation. With that said, it is my great pleasure to introduce not only someone who's made an incredible impact in our state, but also has become a great friend of mine, and that is Tom Burns, Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Director Burns has been a strong advocate for Nevada's continued growth, innovation, and economic diversification. Please join me in welcoming Director Tom Burns.
Jay, thank you for those kind words. Good morning, everyone. That's pretty good. On behalf of Governor Lombardo and the Governor's Office of Economic Development, welcome to SEICon. It's a pleasure to be here with so many leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs, and others who are here to shaping the future of sports, entertainment, and technology. Nevada has long been known as the sports and entertainment capital of the world. From world championship sporting events and major concerts to film, gaming, and live entertainment, we've built an unmatched reputation for bringing people together through unforgettable experiences. But today, Nevada is known for doing something different and something remarkably important. We're becoming the place where ideas behind the experiences come to life. As our economy continues to diversify, we're investing in innovation, entrepreneurship, workforce, and partnerships that position Nevada as the intellectual capital of sports and entertainment. At GoEd, our mission is to help build an economy that creates opportunity, supports innovation, and attracts industries that will define the future. Conferences like SEICon are important parts of that vision because they bring together the people that both participate in these industries and shape them for the future. SEICon embodies exactly what Nevada does the best in connecting great ideas with great people. It's a place where education and collaboration and deal-making come together. This creates opportunities for new businesses, new technologies, new partnerships, and new careers. The conversations you'll have over the next few days matter. The relationships you build over the next couple of days matter. And the innovations beyond these gatherings will have an impact far beyond Nevada. To our guests who have come from across the country and around the world, thank you for choosing Nevada. We hope that you leave inspired, not only with what you've learned here, but by the opportunities that exist throughout our state. Thank you to the organizers, speakers, sponsors, and everyone who made this possible. Have a great conference. Welcome to my hometown. Have a great time. Take care.
Thank you, both of you, for your inspired leadership and vision as we move forward for not one. SEICon 1 blew the doors off, SEICon 2 blew other doors off, and SEICon 3 is really cementing its reputation as the place to go for sports, entertainment, innovation. The title is certainly worthy. I'd like to thank Sean Garrity and others and USA Today for the sponsorship and the vision exercised there. My role as moderator is to begin this panel and to focus it the topic beyond the Super Bowl. It goes way beyond that, and we'll get into that in a minute. I've been involved in the sports business for nearly 50 years. came out with a book, The Sport Business Handbook, 50 Years of the Sports Business. It's available on Amazon at like 27 cents a copy, but certainly good reading. At the end of the day, 50 years of the business mirrors 60 years of the Super Bowl. And just to put it in some perspective, this was a receipt for the first Super Bowl ever. Yeah, it was, I was old enough to go. Yes, it was. The average ticket price, by the way, was $12, 116 adjusted for inflation. 8,000 average now. Television ratings, a split CBS, NBC, if you remember, was 51 million. About 127 million now. We'll talk about that later. If you add not just grandma who picks up the Nielsen phone, but the real phones, it's well over 200 million, got to be. 30-second ads, 40 grand, that first Super Bowl. Now we're at 7 to 8 million. And of course, NBC last year high, and who knows what ESPN's going to be with their vertical integration. Players, by the way, the Packers, they won that first one, 15 grand. But they've only won a couple cents, so don't get excited. The Seahawks, by the way, $178,000 in the overall economic impact for the LA region, $1.2 million. $800 million economic impact last year in San Francisco and more. The point is, it's far more than a championship game. It's the world's most influential intersection of sports, entertainment, marketing, technology, and culture, game strategy, fan engagement, athlete preparation, and the cutting-edge sports science that powers peak performance on football's biggest stage. It's more than just football today. Obviously, we're in the middle of 104 huge Super Bowls that are called the World Cup these 3 weeks, but that's effectively where it started. An amazing panel today. Chris Thomas, the executive editor of sports for USA Today. Dr. Jen Welter, Gridiron Girls. She'll talk about her diverse background. And Rick Suter, USA Today ad meter editor. We'll get into specifics from all of their perspectives, but with your permission, executive editor, we'll start with you. You've been the executive editor for sports, Chris, at USA Today, helps lead editorial strategy and coverage for one of the largest sports media operations in the country. I don't know why it says one of, it's got to be the largest, reaching nearly 46 million unique viewers each month. From atop the newsroom, you talk about the biggest moments in sports, the intersection with sports and ethics, the publisher side perspective on how fan behavior has changed. Audiences now watch while engaging on social media, and all of the ethical and economic constraints that are put on it. You got a big job. It's clearly got a big job.
I'm busy.
Yeah, of course you're busy. Well, that makes it even more exciting that you're here. So from the Super Bowl perspective, Chris, what makes the Super Bowl unlike any other moment on the media calendar?
Well, it's not just about a game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And it's like so much about what we do at USA Today Sports is really understanding and anticipating audience need. And sometimes that turns on a dime. And, you know, when you have two teams going at it, there's a bunch of big storylines. And I think news media and legacy news media has done a good job of covering what's on the field for decades. But now it's so much more. What happens if Taylor Swift shows up to a game? What if the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl?
Taylor Kelsey?
Sorry. Talk to Brian West about that. He'll give you the insight. Or what if Bad Bunny is doing the Super Bowl halftime show? All of these things have ramifications on our coverage in sports. It's no longer just about the game. And it really is no longer about what we can write about the game. It's about how do we engage people off platform? How do we anticipate the platform that they will consume this content? We've been producing content for a lot of time, for a lot of years, but the manner in which people consume it has completely changed, and it's still evolving. And so what we have to do as a company is really say, where do we go meet audiences where they are, and not just with content that is going to do well, but how do we anticipate what they're going to want next? And so it's bigger, it's bolder, and it's one of the most impactful tent poles on the calendar every single year, because it's not just about a game.
Right. And you know it's going to be effectively that second week in February, last week in January, every single year, and that venue turns into a amazing tentpole for sports and entertainment. Inside, not the editorial substance discussion, but the kind of resource allocation discussion. It's also, Rick, but, from your sports perspective, this is the top priority that week. But you've got ad people telling stories. You've got culture people telling stories. God knows you got entertainment people covering stories. Obviously, there's a news story. There's a little bit of business stuff tied into that. It's a different process than any other mega event.
Well, what makes USA Today Sports unique is we're a network of more than 230 properties. And so just take this Super Bowl, for instance, you're talking about hundreds of people who are coming together across the company just to pull off a game that is played on a Sunday in February. And that includes, obviously, our entertainment includes what Rick does with Ad Meter. And you're talking months in advance of preparation. You cannot win in today's digital media environment by showing up the week of, 2 weeks before, and expect to compete in a digital landscape where eyeballs are up for grabs with Google and with our various social media platforms. It takes months and months of preparation and actually producing content in advance so that we can target where we want to win on the day of the event. And that's everything from Puppy Bowl to Ad Meter to the Super Bowl halftime show to actually what happens in the game. All of that is months and months of preparation, which I think is maybe how things have shifted because it's gotten so big, because you have to bring in so many stakeholders and move a big organization to move in a singular direction.
Let's talk more generally about your day-to-day needle threading. How does a legacy news brand like yours, there's nobody better in my estimation, compete for attention from an ethically appropriate perspective in a world that may be dominated by a multi-platform, creator-driven, deadlines be damned landscape?
Yeah, I think it's challenging. I think one of the things that legacy media has really struggled to do is embrace influencer culture. And part of that reason is because I think ethically in journalism, right? Like there are hard lines that you don't cross. The reality of it is that where audiences are being commanded right now, it's a little bit more free-spirited. And I think that's something that's been a challenge to us of how do we move into a space, share audiences, and really engage with influencers who might have a take on something that might align perfectly with the facts, or it might be a little bit adjacent or a little bit different than what we have, and bring our expertise into the conversations they're commanding. And that's an uncomfortable endeavor. But it's something like the world is moving into influencer alignments. We know that readers and users, especially as you really skew towards young millennial and Gen Z, they build their trust in people more so than they do mastheads. And if we don't recognize that and figure out how do we go attack that, then we're going to be behind. And so I think from an ethics perspective, you always want to vet the people who you're doing business with. But we also really need to be able to share audiences and share space and enter conversations and have tough conversations and challenge maybe narratives that are in that influencer space that might be different. And so strategic partnerships are part of that. Finding the right fit is part of that. But I think it's also being comfortable being uncomfortable in this new era of digital media.
Comfortable being uncomfortable, that goes along with vetting some of the influencers that might be a little bit difficult to vet as compared to the way they might have been, let's say, 20 years ago. We'll save that one for another one. And then we'll have one more question, and then we'll come back to you. Board members in your world will ask and pay executive editors in your world to answer this kind of question. So here goes. Where is the field 50 years from now?
Oh, man. I think that's a really good question. I'm thinking about where's the field 3 years from now?
Yeah,
where is it in 5 years from now? Look, I think mass consumption has become more and more about the user. I had a journalism professor when I was at the University of Tennessee. I can't get out of any panel without mentioning the Vols, that said readers are selfish. And he was from a print journalism background. But it was one of the truest statements that I think has ever been spoken in my career. Readers are selfish. If you're going to pay for something, it's about what you want, how you want to consume it, at the moment you want to consume it. So consumption is only going to continue to race toward that, of what does an individual reader want and where can they interact with people on a drop of a dime to get the content that they desire. If we start thinking about what we think readers need to know versus what readers say they want to know, we're not. Our business model is flawed, and so. What is the mechanism for how people consume content? It's going to continue to change. It's different today than it was 3 years ago, certainly different than what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. But the idea that readers want content that they care about on a moment's notice is only going to continue to accelerate.
Yeah, what a great perspective. And I'm sure the answer is similar or identical 50 years from now. We're going to get to Dr. Welter. But I just want to say that good luck, because I heard the rumor is that the college football playoffs, and you ought to cover it from your sports section, have just agreed to expand to 64 teams. So maybe the Volunteers can get into the playoffs this year.
Oh, man, that's a shot. All right. You're going to push me down a rabbit hole that I don't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I feel very comfortable with USA Today to be able to say that. I'm not sure in the past, but I sure am now. All right. Dr. Welter, she made history in 2015 as the first female coach in the NFL, coaching inside linebacker.
Look at the ladies. Hello, sports conference, and the ladies are the loudest. That's what I'm talking about. Speaking of shifting landscape.
Hey, I saw some men applauding there as
I
well.
know, but the ladies, like, it's not always that way in a football landscape.
Yeah,
right? We're talking about innovation.
I understand.
And new markets and how we have to engage them. And I'm just saying the ladies just crushed it. So guys, step up.
Will you allow me to get on with the bio so I can ask you the questions? And then you can say, will you say whatever the hell you want to say after I finish the bio?
Gosh, don't say that out loud.
Arizona Cardinals.
Yes.
Training camp and preseason, trailblazer, obviously, don't need me to say that many times over, played pro football, 14 seasons, won 2 gold medals with Team USA at the IFAF Women's World Championship 2010 and 2013, and became the first woman to play a non-kicking position, running back, I wouldn't want to try to tackle you, in a men's professional league with the Texas Revolution. PhD in psychology, master's degree in sports psychology, best-selling author of Play Big, founder of Gridiron Girls, a flag football camp series building on the next generation of female players and coaches, one of the country's most sought-after voices on athlete preparation, sports psychology, leadership, and the explosive growth of women in flag football. Where do we start? You start. You pick the question.
Man. Well, I think in this conversation, we have the opportunity through a big platform like football, like the Super Bowl, to say, where can it become bigger? Where can it become better? And for me, I want you to think about what being a first means. Inherently, that means only. And inherently, that means that there were conversations that I was never a part of. And that doesn't mean just me. That means women in general weren't always there, right? When we talk about the rise of flag football, we now have a generation of girls who can look out the field and say, I want to be her. I think that's one of the biggest evolutions in sports culture that we'll be able to see, and definitely the most relevant in my lifetime, is that girls don't have to look at football and think it's the final frontier for women and girls in sports anymore. But that's what it was for me. I wasn't allowed to play football when I was a little girl. And now we're talking about when we look at the biggest stage in sports and the biggest game, arguably, and that it's more than a game. And how can we make that game bigger? Well, it's creating games for girls. It's education for women. It's honoring legacy. It's this inclusive ecosystem that now we're looking at fandom in a different way, and we're able to curate conversations. We're able to curate activations and storytell to an audience that before, no offense, but, we would only see them when they were on the sidelines cheering for the guys doing what they were doing. And so now we can have women who want to learn the game. We can have girls who are going to showcase a juke just like the boys. And we can look out onto the field and see, like when Katie Sowers was the first woman coach on the sidelines of a Super Bowl, that a little girl got to say, like, Mom, could I do that? And I think that's where this whole conversation goes, is that now the sport's on a trajectory of inclusion that now is both genders, and it's not just American football anymore. It's truly becoming a global game.
Talking to Amanda last night, and you have a lot of common interests with a lot of people in this room, talking about female empowerment and making sure that there's the own independent persona to the pursuit of sports, not because they want to appease anybody else in their group, male or female, but because they want to do it themselves. And so I'm assuming that it's only greater opportunities in the future. Let's isolate one: flag football, women's flag football, and the Olympics, that whole package. I'm assuming you're very excited about where it's going.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't be more excited. I feel like I'm like a little kid that gets Christmas every day and didn't grow up with Christmas. Okay, so I had the opportunity to play on the first women's U.S. tackle team in 2010. So imagine this. You get a call. Congratulations, Jen Welter. You are one of the best 45 and certainly the shortest, I'm just kidding, women's tackle football players in the U.S., and we'll get the argument to make that you're one of the best in the world. Now, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to take a month off work and cut us a check for $3,000. We had to pay to play for Team USA in America's game. It was only America's game for the men. And now, as we look to the Olympics standard is that you have to include both women and men. And that's what they told us in 2010, that if we did this, if we made this case, that someday football would be in the Olympics. And not one of us thought like, well, I'm not going to do it because it's not worth it. We were investing in the future of the game. So I lovingly say we were the strong shoulder pads that the game stands on today. And do you know what happened with that Team USA? I'm just going to tell you, y'all. If you don't know this, you want a story? Take some notes, everybody. Over 3 games, which we played in a week. Okay, so don't tell me about Thursday night football. Okay, we all hear the complaints. As a coach, I complain about it too because it is a short prep week. But as players, we had to play 3 games in a week. We had to play Austria, then Finland, and then Canada for gold. And over those 3 games, we defeated the world 201-0.
Yeah.
And that dominant performance is like the hidden figures of football. A story like that in a sport that literally has found its way into culture in all levels is something that women and girls deserve to know going forward, so that they know there is a strong legacy, that they've joined and that they're not alone. Because I think the scariest thing in sports is being a first, because that means you're by yourself. And these girls going forward are having new opportunities open up every day, but there is certainly a strong support for them to build on.
From a business perspective, we talk about Caitlin Clark and the values. Caitlin Clark is basically Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan in a different uniform. We talk about women's soccer and the franchise values, which, you've written about and see the graphs and the charts. Jess Berman, great job, but the unbelievable values, along with tennis and golf, which have been there, but they're here. And then you to it from the corporate perspective, look at the sponsorship going up. Do you see it as giving you more comfort because it's validation and it's happening? Do you see a little of it as, when does female football finally get valued the way these other sports are, or have we started doing that yet? What's your reaction to all that?
Oh gosh, I think we've seen with the acquisition of RCX Sports recently, and the investment in Tomorrow Sports to build out Flag, that this is truly the blue ocean territory in terms of sports investment. It's not only going to get there, I would predict that it exceeds what some of those other sports have been done with the love that we have of football. And the fact that for the first time in the history of the game of American football, it can truly be global in Flag where it hasn't been able to be in tackle means that it's exponential growth that's just on the surface. You can now go to college on a full ride to play flag football. Hello. So you can change the trajectory of your life and your family's life through playing football as a girl. That is something that has never happened in the history of this game. So the valuations, are they going to go up? Heck yes, because these girls, the level of skill that they're developing now growing up playing the game are ones that I certainly didn't get the fluidity or the opportunity to do because football was never able to be my full-time job. So you talk valuations and you talk star potential. We're building them now. Those girls are playing on field somewhere that people haven't even gotten to see yet. I've been on fields with these girls since 2017, where I was begging people to just let their daughter try it. Just let her come out here, let her play this game. And now you see those girls balling. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. And you cannot say that the potential is not there. And the fact that, they always say soccer is a global game because what? All you need is a ball and some grass. Flag football allows for that. And that means that for the first time in the world, what makes you different makes you special. And you can play the game in your way. You don't have to be the biggest to be the best. And that's where you're really going to see the competition shine. So the valuations where they are now, invest, go all in because it's going to be bigger and better. And it's going to happen fast.
NASDAQ IPO, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right, just remember that. And at the end of the day, we'll get back to Jen, but don't get in her way physically or metaphorically. I can guarantee you. Rick Suter, USA Today, ad meter editor. Sorry about that. I know your name. I just butchered it. I've known you for like 5 years. I'm sorry. The editor, USA Today Ad Meter, senior content strategist for USA Today Sports Media Group. He runs the industry leading measure of Super Bowl advertising sentiment, a franchise that has defined winning in the Super Bowl ad game since 1989 and completed its 38th annual competition in 2026. And that process, by the way, keeps on giving. It'll be there till the end of time. Presented by State Farm. Whoever wants to spend the money will present it. Suter moderates the annual Ad Meter Summit during Super Bowl week. Brand panels with marketers from the NFL, Anheuser-Busch, Pepsi, Toyota, and others. Created Ad Meter's School Spotlight program, brings university marketing students to the national conversation around Super Bowl commercials. Former baseball player turned writer, host, strategist. He sits at the exact intersection this panel is built around: sports, advertising, entertainment, culture collide on the biggest day of the year. I would say more than that, the biggest industry of the year. So what separates ads that generate buzz from ads that creating lasting business impact? And the collateral question, what's the key measurement for success?
I think it's shifted so much. You brought up a good point when you look at the history of just the Super Bowl and the different things. The true kind of outlier at first was always the commercial. And now I always kind of look at it like, when you think about Jerry Rice 95 or some of these different like Super Bowl heroes, you're talking about sharing space with three frogs that went Budweiser. And that's something that you don't normally get. Like that's what makes the Super Bowl commercial so special, is it truly is now kind of the star of the show, so much that, when you look at Patriots, Seahawks, and the 130 million people, those aren't all Patriots and Seahawks fans. Patriots fans might think that that's the case, but it's, there's just people that tune in and it's for those commercials. So I think, you can break that down into different sections and looking, okay, what is success? Is it just making this big splash on the screen? Is it getting this sort of ROI where down the road? There's just so many different metrics now. I would say success specifically for the brands is just becoming that. It's a brand. If I say Nike, you think of swoosh, right? Sometimes if I do say Budweiser, you're going to think of the Clydesdales. It's becoming something that is larger than just a chip or a beer or whatever. It's something where people look at it and go, oh, it's that brand. And I think that's sort of the recognition, especially in this era, so many brands are trying to do, where it's this multimedia kind of phase of social media. They're trying to do television commercials, obviously these different teasers and things like that. So, I think the success of it really just comes down to 5 months down the road, 6 months down the road. People might have forgotten about the commercial in a sense, but at the same time, if it comes up again, it's that like, oh, that's that commercial from the Super Bowl. And I think that's where you see a lot of the best brands go to, where they don't try to make it so much of a like marketing splash where we're coming out with this new product because I don't think people really pay attention to that as much as other things. I think it's just about growing your brand awareness and having a little bit of fun too. Again, like you got 130 million eyeballs on this thing, like, show a little creativity.
I just remember, so your boss is here, and we're going to rack this up for the Christmas party tape. What did those Budweiser frogs say again?
Bud.
Wise.
Sir, look at that.
How was that?
Look at that.
Come on. Was that pretty good? That's as good as it gets, by the way. And that's our promotional thing, Sean, for SEICon 4. All right, you got it.
If you don't have a sponsor from that one, then we're all fine.
I was about to say the valuation just went up there.
Well, A, and B, there are equity participants in that revenue there. So
Absolutely.
don't just start thinking about it. So the other real impact issue, I think you're singularly qualified to answer, is Ad Meter's role, but the broader picture of the industry definition of advertising success, and also how it keys to ratings. Formerly you'd have Nielsen calling grandma. She'd pick up the phone and say, yeah, it's me. I'm watching. I'm one. And they count one. And then you don't call the churches. You don't call the phones. You don't call the watch parties. But so talk about how the business has changed and evolved to your benefit.
Yeah. I think that Ad Meter since 1989 has kind of been this interesting journey where it really they're like time capsules. So you do see parts of these eras where, in 1989, it was a lot of windbreakers and spiky hair and, neon and perms. And while some of us want that to come back, you get to kind of see that travel through different things. And you see the metrics of, again, to go back to your point, Super Bowl commercials costing $37,000 to $40,000 in 1967. The first time it was over $1 million was 1995. Last year, it ranged up to $10 million. So you're looking at $333,000 a second. That's the same cost in 1982 for the entire 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. So it's that kind of pressure and build, but that moves things into this era now of the modern age, which is digital. And to your point, back in the day when Ad Meter started, it was a select group of consumers would come in, they would have the dial, they probably knew what a landline was, they had all these different things now that we look at and we're like, what? And as we've sort of moved along within the company, it's an interesting mirror where you do see things move from print to digital to this new era where social media is just as important with it. And that's why I think Ad Meter has been really exciting just in the past couple of years, growing along with that, where we're bringing in new voices and new generations, the Gen Z and the mythical, trying to capture that audience. I think Ad Meter has kind of positioned itself just like a lot of the USA Today products where we're no longer just keeping it in this select group. We're making it a more conversational thing, which ultimately helps the brands because it's not just 6 people going, I hated that ad. It's, 100,000 people going, I hated that ad.
With all due respect to the, executive director, editor's job of the 4 corners of the game, plus he's got other stuff to do. If it's a boring game, I'm waiting for the Ad Meter stuff to come out because that stuff is even more entertaining and it's not scripted. Yeah, and that's what the game is, but it's not scripted. So, but that's half the equation. The other half, you got the lockdown as far as the content and the proprietary nature of it on preferences and how to measure preferences. But what about the future of the question of, one call, one person, television versus digital? That world is expanding leaps and bounds. You're going to cross the line soon where more people are watching on devices than televisions. Are the numbers for the rates going to be the same? Do you measure it the same way? Are the eyeballs the same eyeballs, whether they're eyeballs looking at a small rectangle or a big TV? A lot of questions, but that's why they pay the big bucks. So
yeah, the biggest bucks. Get these linen suits for free. So, I think that I look at things a little bit differently in the grand scheme of like digital versus the standard media and traditions of like looking at your cell phone versus a big television screen or a watch party or things like that, in the sense that I think we're positioned to win in a lot of ways simply because social media, the greatest thing that it does is it prompts you to something else. And it builds this visualization awareness. Let's face it, even your favorite influencers out there, you guys are thumbing through that 100 miles an hour. You might catch 5 seconds of it. So the idea of like needing to rely on it as being this sort of like end all be all, I don't think is as concerning as just making sure that we are having social media awareness and we're talking about these things. We have a great set of reporters. One of them that was in the front row a little bit ago with Brian West, like people that are connecting with these audiences and they're seeing these different things, talking about Super Bowl commercials. Again, Brands do teasers now. They're teasing 30 seconds before the game. They're releasing commercials before the game. It's no longer the aha moment. So I think us being able to capture that within the social media space to where you are seeing it on your phone still prompts you back to Ad Meter. That might shift in a couple of years. We might make it more of a digital thing where you're voting on your phone. I don't know. But I always think that we're in a better place now with social media to win on Ad Meter and to drive audience than we were even 10 years ago, because those were things where it was like, let's stick this on Facebook and see what happens. And, you don't know people. It's something that it's kind of this like abstract idea. With now we know what social media is. We know how to make these prompts. I think that that's sort of exciting and where I think we're kind of set up to win.
Final question for you, Rick. Then we'll be back. Consistent with the questions of the other two folks, what does the ad culture and industry look like around Super Bowl 90?
I think you're going to see a lot more first-time brands. I think that a lot of these, because you've seen that the last few years, we're seeing first-time advertisers jump into this. And there was one CMO that said it best. He was like, where else does the audience not turn off when the commercial comes on? Super Bowl is basically it. So like the spend's never going to be a problem. Like it makes sense to have that awareness. I think you're going to see brands looking at this as a way to connect, because you're trying to connect with audiences. I think the most interesting thing within the grand storyboarding of things, where the brands are thinking after the Super Bowl Monday, they're already thinking about the next Super Bowl. So I think when you look at it in the kind of like, okay, how do we tease this? Is this campaign going to be Super Bowl? And then 7 months down the road, are we going to continue with what we're trying to build? I think you're going to see more brands jump into that because they know the power of, one, social media to build up the audience, and then having that massive audience on Super Bowl Sunday, people talking about it the week after. And to me, there's even the worst Super Bowl commercial it's going to get talked about. Some of the worst ones are the ones that get the most buzz. So there really isn't a like, oh man, we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, they also put a lot of marketing directors in LinkedIn to look for their next job.
100%. But I mean, that's part of the game too. But I think that it's, for Super Bowl 90, it's obviously you'll still have Budweiser and it's Clydesdales and things like that. But I think you're going to see, much more compelling brands that are in that digital space. It might be the next boom. Obviously, we've seen AIs and all the different things in the last couple of years. So at that point, it might be an AI horse company. I don't know. But like you're going to see more of those first-time brands jump into it.
One round then, Chris, a philosophical question more than anything else. You focus so much on the fans and the users and try to tailor the world around the readers. And let's not even call them the readers now. Let's call them the fans, those that are making the industry work. They pay for the tickets, they watch the media, they pay for the sponsorship pieces of it. What's the one most important concept or maybe mission or idea that you need to kind of carry forward specifically or generally over the next few years as the industry evolves?
Trust. I think everything is about trust. I think when you look at a lot of the polarization around news media, and you really think about sports media in general, I think there are more skeptics out there than ever. And I think the way that we bring people back is exclusive and distinctive content. I think it's content that's fun. I think legacy media has had an issue with being a little stuffy. Like, people like to laugh. They like to have fun. They like to take shots at their rival fan bases, and really embracing that culture, but also with a bedrock of trust. And so, our organizations across our company, from USA Today to the Detroit Free Press to the Tennessee, and I could keep going down the list. There's more than 200 of them. They built their businesses through trust. And I think as people move forward and they consume information, like ultimately you're going to go where you can rely on the people who are speaking to you. So I know it's a really simple answer, but I think it's also the answer. I think trust matters, and then our job is to deliver that trust in the moment and meet readers where they are, so that they see us rather than our competitors.
Simplest answers are almost always the best answers, obviously. Jen, from your perspective, 5-10 years from now, the key, most important component as far as the business and how it evolves, from your general perspective?
So when I look at it, I'm going to go through my own personal lens because that's the one I know best. And When I first got like invited into this world, I was always an outsider. And then all of a sudden I'm in the middle of this world, and I kept hearing from women like, I think I'd like football, but every time I ask my husband, boyfriend, whatever, he says, don't bother me, I'm watching the game. And of course I was like, well, I can coach anybody in football. Now you got my attention. But what it made me realize is that access to information in a way that makes you feel heard and makes you feel related to is an opportunity. So sometimes we go really big to see if we can reach more people. And I think we lose them in the process, because in trying to find everybody, we lose the people who could feel really good and really special if we just looked at them. So when I looked at Super Bowl, I kind of said, well, how can we create space for people like me who maybe didn't look like what they used to think the fans looked like, or didn't have something where I belonged, and curate to that? And that was Gridiron Girls first, right? Like, I don't think it was revolutionary to do football camps for girls. They were football camps. They just happened to be with an empowerment angle to girls. And we were bringing the best women and men together for the good of girls. Let me tell you something about Vegas in that. This was one of the first states to sanction girls' high school football. They are behind it at the collegiate level. And when we did a Gridiron Girls camp at Super Bowl, which is a tradition for me, I've now done it, I think, 8 years in a row. I mixed it when I was coaching for, by the way, Vegas in the XFL. That was the only time I missed a Super Bowl since I've been in this. But we had UNLV guys out there coaching the girls. And we had some of the girls who are now in the U.S. national team because they had a place they could shine. You know that girl who was in the Super Bowl commercial, Kilolo, who did the reverse, Deshaun? She's from right here in Vegas. She became the first girl to get a collegiate Division I scholarship. Those girls having a place at Super Bowl changes their confidence in the sport. We also do fantasy experiences for women. So the women get to have a day in the life of an NFL player, and they get to come out and learn how to throw, catch, tackle. Guess what? They're going to watch the game in a different way because somebody said, I got you, come learn about this. So I think with that, with knowing that people want to be people and they want to relate, we make fandom from people who didn't play football, from people who get a unique opportunity to experience the game. We talked about earlier the Taylor Swift effect, because Swifties were looking at Taylor and wanted to look at the game for the first time. And now they saw somebody that they related to also at the games, and they said, oh, this is a cool game. So we want to curate situations where we're creating hyper-inclusive conversations where someone can fit in. So then I look at you mentioned AI. Well, don't make AI more general. Make it more personal. Make it more relatable. Allow us to be more hyper-focused on that person who may not have seen themselves in the game. And then we'll have places where you see more and more people get involved in the game. So I think bigger is going to give us the opportunity to be more specific, to be more inclusive, to look more global, but also focus hyper-local.
Yeah, perfect perspective. Rick, last panel word, the kind of interrelationship in the future. Again, we're all talking about 10, 15 years out, trend. Corporate partnerships, your ad revenues are supposed to be commercial transactions, but at the end of the day, corporate CEOs would suggest that they wanted to identify partnerships, maybe with media companies, certainly with leagues. You're watching ESPN and others do that on a daily basis. What's your take on the whole interrelationship between corporate America, corporate media America, and the leagues and teams themselves?
Yeah, and I think that's again, I personally think it's great, and you are seeing that shift where you're seeing brands now move into almost a multimedia deal, where they understand that connections and partnerships don't always mean sort of someone stepping on someone's toes creatively, monetarily, all these different things, and I think you're going to continue to see that grow. To Jen's point, you look at some of the impact with a group like the NFL and the commercials they've done. 10, 15 years ago, the idea was like, look, we made this, it's got a pink number on it. Like you're set. And now these impactful things, she mentioned Katie Sowers. She was in a Microsoft commercial in 2020. And as things move forward, you're seeing these connections, whether it be within a city that's giving sort of the central look at the way the culture is of like the certain area, or it's a brand working with another brand that has kind of common interests to continue to grow things. I think you're going to continue to see that. You see it in the World Cup. I was telling this to Chris, the Heinz ketchup Heineken like ad, I think basically set the tone for something that, it's creative. It tells a message. It's sort of a fun way to look at things. And I feel like you'll continue to see that to grow into the future.
So just in conclusion, it's hard to put this all in a bow because it's a very large Christmas present for those who want to act on what the industry looks like in years to come. My request to go to the IPO for NASDAQ at 9:00 tomorrow, that's a tout, that's wrong, that's a rumor. But the bottom line is this industry is growing by leaps and bounds. Talk about a $2.6 trillion industry. My book talked about $1 billion, it cost me money. I've got to cross that out and double it. And it's doubling, every single year. One of the things that we found here from an overall perspective is creativity and flexibility, persistence and tenacity, trust, know your audience and meet them halfway or meet them where they are. And by the way, those are enduring principles, whether you're running a multimedia company, whether you're coaching a team, whether you're attending a conference or anything else. I would call them life principles. Incredibly excited to be the moderator of this opening panel. More to come. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll hear more from you all in the future. Thank you very much.